The security checkpoint at Station Arcturus 7 had processed thousands of beings from hundreds of species, but Chief Security Officer Thalen had never seen anything quite like this. Lieutenant Mara Venn stood before the scanner, her standard-issue uniform crisp, despite 3 months in deep space. Behind her, padding softly on massive paws, came 6 Krith cubs, apex predators whose adult forms stood 9 feet tall and could tear through reinforced steel. They moved in perfect formation, golden eyes fixed on the human woman ahead of them. Lieutenant Venn, Thalen's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep confusion in his species. Explain why you have brought Krith young onto this station. The regulations clearly state— I haven't brought them anywhere, Mara interrupted, her voice carrying that peculiar human quality of being simultaneously respectful and completely dismissive of authority. They followed me. Followed you? Thalen's translator struggled with his tone of disbelief. Krith cubs don't follow. They're pack predators, yes, but they only respond to their pride leaders. Even then, their obedience is based on strength and dominance. He gestured at her slight frame. Human. Mara's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Yeah, I get that a lot. The smallest cub, Rin, though small, was relative when discussing a creature that weighed 200 pounds and possessed retractable claws the length of combat knives, pushed forward and sat directly beside Mara's leg. The cub's massive head reached her hip. A deep rumbling purr emanated from its chest. Thalen stepped back involuntarily. This is unprecedented. Krith cubs are being studied on the research colony of Theta 9. How did you even encounter them? My ship had engine trouble 3 weeks ago. We made an emergency landing on Theta 9. Mara reached down absently and scratched behind Rin's ear. The cub leaned into her touch, nearly knocking her off balance. I helped repair the habitat fence after a storm damaged it. The cubs were there, and they just started following you? Not immediately. Mara's expression grew thoughtful. First day they watched me work. Second day, Rin here came closer. I was welding a support beam, and he brought me a chunk of protein bar that had fallen from my pack. Thought I'd dropped food, I guess. She shrugged, a gesture that made the other 5 cubs shift their attention to her shoulders, as if expecting something to appear there. I said thank you. Kept working. By day 3, all 6 were helping. Helping. Thalen's translator added a note of flat disbelief to the word. They'd carry tools, hold things steady with their paws. Rin figured out how to activate the pneumatic lifts. Mara's voice held genuine admiration. They're smart. Smarter than anyone gives them credit for. They're predators, Thalen insisted. Dangerous. Unpredictable. So are humans, Mara replied quietly. But we're also curious. We help. We build. We make friends in strange places. She looked down at Rin, who gazed back with unsettling intelligence. Maybe they recognized something familiar. Thalen pulled up his datapad, scrolling through regulations and precedents. The research team on Theta 9 has been trying to establish basic communication protocols with Krith Young for 2 years. They've made minimal progress. You're telling me you achieved pack bonding in 3 weeks? I'm not telling you I achieved anything. I fixed a fence. They chose to help. Then they chose to follow when my ship left. Mara's voice carried a hint of frustration now. I didn't steal them. I didn't coerce them. I couldn't have stopped them if I tried, which I did. 3 times. They're here because they want to be. As if to emphasize her point, Rin stood and moved between Mara and Thalen, a clear, protective stance. The other cubs formed up, creating a living barrier. Rin, stand down, Mara said, her tone firm but not harsh. The cub looked back at her, made a sound somewhere between a chirp and a growl, then slowly returned to her side. The others followed suit. Thalen watched this exchange with all 4 eyes wide. How did you do that? I asked. He listened. That's how relationships work. Mara crossed her arms. Look, I know this is irregular, but these cubs left a secure facility because they wanted to see the galaxy. They're explorers. Sound like anyone you know? The security officer was silent for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. a sound like wind through hollow reeds. Humans, you arrive in the galaxy less than a century ago, and already you're befriending species we've deemed untrainable for millennia. We prefer misunderstood, Mara corrected. Besides, no one's untrainable. Some just need the right teacher, or maybe the right friend. Rin pressed against her leg again, and she steadied herself with a hand on his shoulder. The cub's purr intensified. The council won't like this, Thalen warned. The council doesn't like half of what humans do, Mara responded. They didn't like our music until they heard jazz. They didn't trust our engineering until we built stations that survived supernovas. They didn't think we could navigate the void currents until we mapped routes that cut travel time in half. She met Thalen's gaze evenly. Humans are good at proving people wrong. These cubs are good at being underestimated. Seems like we're perfect for each other. Thalen looked at the cubs, then at the human, then back at his datapad. With a gesture that suggested he was already regretting his decision, he cleared the security hold. You're approved for entry, but Lieutenant Venn, you're responsible for them. All of them. Wouldn't have it any other way. Mara gestured forward, and the cubs moved with her as one unit. As they passed through the checkpoint, she called back over her shoulder. Oh, and Chief, you might want to update your xenobiology database. Krith cubs don't follow based on strength. They follow based on respect. We figured that out week 1. As the human and her unlikely companions disappeared into the station's corridors, Thalen stood motionless, processing what had just occurred. Around the galaxy, species prided themselves on their intelligence, their technology, their ancient civilizations. But humans had something different. They saw potential where others saw limitations. They offered friendship where others offered dominance. They believed in connection across impossible divides. Thalen pulled up a communication channel to the council. They needed to know about this development. More importantly, they needed to understand what it meant. Humanity wasn't just joining the galactic community. They were changing it, one unlikely friendship at a time. And perhaps, Thalen thought as he watched security footage of Rin playfully tackling Mara in a corridor while she laughed and the other cubs joined the tumble, that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Someone to remind them that the greatest strength wasn't in claws or weapons or ancient power. It was in the courage to see beyond what something was and recognize what it could become. That more than anything was why humanity would always surprise them, and why Krith cubs would follow a woman who simply treated them like the intelligent beings they'd always been.